Princess Lyra of Zetheria stood on the balcony of the royal palace, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky with shades of violet and gold. Today should have been a day of celebration. Soon, she would be crowned queen of her people. But even as she looked at the sparkling city below, a quiet unease settled in her heart. Something felt different, something she could not explain. Zetheria was a peaceful planet, advanced in technology and culture, yet proud of its traditions. The city was alive with people preparing for the upcoming coronation. Drones floated above, carrying banners and lights, while elegant Zetherians in colorful robes moved gracefully through the streets. The air buzzed with excitement. Lyra turned from the balcony, her mind heavy. As the princess, she carried the weight of her people's hopes. She had been trained since childhood in leadership, diplomacy, and combat. She knew the history of her world, the stories of past rulers and the legends of the distant stars. Among those legends, the most mysterious were the tales of humans. Humans were considered myth in Zetheria. Stories told of their bravery, their resilience, and their strange ways. No one had seen a human for generations, yet the legends spoke of warriors from another world who could face impossible odds. Lyra had always dismissed these tales as fanciful stories, until now. A sudden rumble broke her thoughts. The ground shook lightly under her feet. She frowned and moved to the balcony edge. In the distance, a bright streak of light tore across the sky, descending rapidly toward the outskirts of the city. Citizens pointed and gasped. "What is that?" Lyra whispered to herself. The palace sensors picked up the object immediately. The royal advisor, an older Zetherian named Thalen, appeared behind her. "Princess, a vessel is entering our atmosphere. At dangerous speed, it appears human-made." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected to see one in real life. And yet, she could not look away. The streak of light slammed into the ground outside the city with a thunderous crash, sending a plume of dust and fire into the air. The shockwave rattled the palace windows. "Prepare the guards," Lyra commanded, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "I want to see who or what survived that." Moments later, the palace courtyard was filled with Zetherian guards, all armed and ready. They moved in formation toward the crash site, their sleek armor glinting in the setting suns. Lyra followed, curiosity and caution battling within her. As they approached the wreckage, the heat of the crash was intense, but Lyra noticed something remarkable. A figure was moving through the smoke, a human. He staggered out of the wreckage, limping slightly, but his eyes burned with determination. His clothes were torn, and his skin was scorched, but there was an unmistakable strength in his posture. He was unlike any Zetherian, with broad shoulders and a determined gaze that seemed to pierce through the chaos. The guards raised their weapons, ready to attack, but Lyra stepped forward. "Wait," she called. "He does not appear to be a threat. Not yet." The human looked up at her. His dark eyes widened in shock as he saw her standing on the edge of the courtyard. For a moment, time seemed to stop. There was something in that gaze, something familiar, though Lyra could not understand it. "Who are you?" Lyra demanded, her voice firm. I am Kale," the human said, his voice rough but strong. I do not know how I came here." Lyra studied him carefully. His honesty was clear. There was no cunning, no fear, only confusion and determination. She could sense his courage, and strangely she felt a pull, as if the universe itself had guided him here. "Bring him to the palace," Lyra ordered. "We must learn everything about him." The guards hesitated, but Lyra's authority was absolute. Kale was escorted to the palace under heavy guard, and Lyra followed closely. Inside the palace, he was treated carefully. Medics tended to his wounds, and the scientists examined his technology. Nothing about him matched Zetherian design. His vessel, though damaged, was clearly of Earth origin, a human world unknown to Zetherians. As Kale recovered, he began to demonstrate his abilities. He could move swiftly despite injuries, and he handled Zetherian technology with surprising skill. When a security system malfunctioned, he repaired it in minutes, earning murmurs of admiration from the palace engineers. Lyra watched quietly, impressed but wary. That night, as the palace lights glimmered under the twin moons, Lyra found herself unable to sleep. She walked through the halls, thinking about Kale. Something about him felt familiar, important, as if he belonged not just here but somehow to her. Suddenly, her mind was flooded with images, strange flashes of a life she had never lived, a man fighting beside her, a bond that felt deeper than anything she had known. Her heart raced. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the visions. "It's impossible," she whispered. "He is a human, and I am Zetherian. There can be no connection." But the universe seemed to have other plans. The next morning, Cal was brought before the Royal Council. They questioned him about his origin, his mission, and his intentions. Cal spoke calmly, answering each question honestly. His respect for life, his courage, and his unique approach to problem-solving impressed even the skeptical council members. Lyra observed silently. She noticed small things, the way Kale's eyes tracked multiple threats at once, the quick decisions he made, the quiet confidence that did not demand attention but commanded it. Unlike any visitor she had ever seen, he carried an energy that inspired respect and trust. Later, in a private audience, Lyra approached him. "Kyle," she said softly, "you have survived something most could not, and you have abilities we cannot explain. Tell me, why are you here?" Kyle looked into her eyes, and for the first time he seemed unsure. I do not know," he admitted. "I was traveling through space. Then there was a bright light and I woke up here. I feel drawn to this world, and to you." Lyra's breath caught. Those words stirred something deep within her, something she could not deny. "To me?" she echoed, almost in disbelief. Kale nodded, hesitating. "I do not understand it, but I feel it. Something connects us." Lyra took a step closer. Her mind raced, memories and visions overlapping with the reality before her. "This is impossible," she whispered. And yet, as she looked at him, she felt a strange certainty. The world she knew was changing, and she could feel the first threads of a story that was much larger than herself, larger than Zetheria. Outside, the twin suns rose over the horizon, casting light on a planet that would soon witness something extraordinary. The princess and the human warrior were destined to cross paths, not by chance but by a force that neither fully understood. Kale had arrived, and with him, a new chapter for Zetheria was about to begin. The princess, poised and determined, realized that the events of that day were only the beginning. A human warrior had entered her world, and in ways she could not yet see, he would change everything. The morning after Kale's arrival, the palace was buzzing with whispers. News of the human warrior spread like wildfire. Citizens, scientists, and guards alike debated who he was and why he had come. Some were fearful, some curious, but most were captivated by the mystery he carried. Princess Lyra, however, felt a mixture of curiosity and unease. She could not stop thinking about Kale. His presence stirred memories she did not understand, visions of a life she could not remember but felt intimately connected to. Determined to understand him, Lyra summoned Kale to a private chamber in the palace. He entered cautiously, bowing respectfully. Despite his unusual appearance, there was a nobility about him that demanded attention. "Kyle," Lyra began, her voice calm yet probing. "You have come to Zetheria, and yet you carry no memory of your past. You survive where others would fail, and somehow, I feel that you are not here by chance." Kale met her gaze, steady and honest. "Princess, I do not know why I'm here, but I feel drawn to this world and to you. Every choice I made, every step I took before the crash, it all seems to have led me here." Lyra's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Humans were thought to be legends, myths of courage and strength. That Kale was one in the flesh, alive and standing before her, unsettled everything she believed. She decided it was time to consult the ancient archives, a collection of Zitherian knowledge and history that spanned millennia. These archives contained records of the planet's most sacred legends, some believed to be prophecy, some believed to be mere stories. Accompanied by Kale, Lyra descended into the dim, glowing halls of the archive. Rows of luminous crystals hummed with information, each containing centuries of Zitherian history. Lyra guided Kale toward the central chamber, where the most sacred texts were kept. "This is where the prophecy is recorded," she explained. "It speaks of a time when our world will face danger, and the true consort of the princess will arrive from a distant world. But—" she hesitated. "It is unclear whether this consort will be a Zitherian or something else entirely." Kale's eyes widened. "A consort? Me?" he asked, voice uncertain. "I don't understand." Lyra studied him carefully. "I do not know yet, but your arrival fits the description far too closely to be coincidence. You are human, yet you possess abilities no Zitherian has. And your courage, it is undeniable." Kale frowned, thinking. "Abilities? What do you mean?" Lyra led him to a chamber that displayed simulations of past battles. "You survive situations that others cannot. You think in ways we do not. In the last few hours, you have already saved lives and inspired our guards. Humans. If the legends are true, you are extraordinary." Kale felt a strange warmth in her words. He had always believed he was different, stronger in some ways than others, but no one had ever acknowledged it without fear or suspicion. Lyra's words were not just praise, they were recognition. Over the next few days, Kale began to adapt to Zitherian life, learning their customs and technology. He trained with the palace guards, demonstrating unusual skill in combat. Unlike the Zitherians, who relied heavily on advanced weapons and shields, Kale's strength was in agility, strategy, and improvisation. During one training session, the captain of the Royal Guard challenged him. "Your methods are unconventional," the captain said, watching Kale dodge and counter with surprising speed. Kale grinned. "I fight differently. I do what works, not what tradition says must work." The captain, though skeptical, could not deny the results. Kale's techniques, though unfamiliar, proved effective. The guards began to see him as an asset rather than a threat. Meanwhile, Lyra continued to study the prophecy. She found fragments that described a warrior from the stars who would unite strength and wisdom to protect Zitheria from a great danger. Though the details were vague, one line stood out. "The bond of destiny will awaken the heart, and courage from another world shall lead to salvation." Lyra's heart raced. Could Kale be the one from the prophecy? She could not ignore the visions that had haunted her since his arrival, the visions of them fighting side by side, sharing a connection deeper than life itself. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Kale and Lyra stood on a terrace overlooking the city. The air was calm, but both felt the tension of the unknown. "I still don't understand why I'm here," Kyle said quietly. "I feel like I was meant to come, but I don't know for what." Lyra looked at him, her voice softening. "Perhaps it is not yet time to know. Some answers reveal themselves only when the moment arrives. But I feel there is a reason you survived, a reason you came to Zitheria, something beyond chance." Kyle studied her, realizing there was a quiet strength in her words. "You trust me," he said. "I do," Lyra replied, "more than I understand. And you must trust yourself too. You have gifts, Kale. Gifts that this world has never seen before. If the prophecy is true, you may hold the key to protecting it." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Sensors detected a rogue fleet approaching Zitheria's orbit. A faction of alien raiders, long thought dormant, had returned. Their ships were fast and heavily armed, threatening the planet's capital. Lyra's eyes narrowed. It seems the test begins sooner than expected, she said. She turned to Kale. We must prepare. Kale nodded. Despite his lack of experience with Zetharian space defenses, he felt an inner certainty. Something about this challenge felt familiar, as if he had faced impossible odds before and survived. The Royal Council convened in haste. Holographic displays showed the raider ships approaching. Zetharian generals strategized, but their methods were standard and predictable. Kale stepped forward. Let me help, he said. I can fight alongside your forces, and I may have strategies you haven't considered. The council murmured in doubt, but Lyra's gaze met Kale's. She saw the same determination she had witnessed before. She spoke clearly, commanding authority. We will give him a chance. If he is truly from the prophecy, he may be the edge we need. Training began immediately. Kyle worked with the guards and pilots, blending human tactics with Zetharian technology. He introduced new methods of coordination, combining speed, agility, and unpredictability. The guards were skeptical at first, but results spoke for themselves. During a simulation, Kale anticipated attacks, redirected energy shields, and suggested maneuvers that no Zetharian had thought of. By the end, even the most skeptical generals were impressed. Lyra watched silently, her heart swelling with admiration. She began to realize that Kale was not just a warrior. He was extraordinary in a way that could change the course of their world. That night, after training, Kale and Lyra stood once more on the terrace. The stars twinkled above and the city glowed below. I feel like I belong here, Kyle admitted, even if I don't fully understand why. Lyra smiled faintly. Perhaps belonging is not about understanding everything. Perhaps it is about knowing where your actions matter, where your heart is needed. You are already a part of Zetheria, Kale, whether you realize it or not. For the first time since his arrival, Kyle felt a deep sense of purpose. He did not know the full story, the prophecy, or the dangers ahead, but he knew one thing. He was here for a reason, and he would fight to protect this world. As they looked at the horizon, both sensed the approaching storm. The rogue faction would test their courage and strength, and the prophecy would soon begin to unfold in ways neither fully understood. Kale's arrival was no accident. The prophecy, the visions, the connection between him and Lyra, all were threads woven by fate. And soon Zetheria would see a new kind of hero, one born not of their world but from the courage of humanity. The night grew quiet, but both Lyra and Kale knew that dawn would bring not just sunlight, but the beginning of a battle that could change the fate of their planet forever. The alarm blared across the palace as red lights flashed violently. The rogue alien fleet had reached Zetherian orbit. Ships of every shape and size streaked through the sky, bristling with weapons. The city below trembled under the incoming energy pulses. Citizens ran for cover, but the palace defenses were ready, or at least they hoped they were. Princess Lyra stood on the command balcony, her eyes scanning the battlefield. Her mind raced through calculations, strategies, and possibilities. Beside her, Kale studied the holographic displays, analyzing enemy movements in ways the Zetherians had never considered. They're faster than usual, a general said. We cannot intercept them all. Kale's gaze hardened. Speed is not the only factor. Their formation is predictable. If we exploit their blind spots, we can force them into a trap. The general raised an eyebrow. And how would you know that? You are not trained in Zetherian tactics. Kale shook his head. I don't need training. I just need to think differently. Lyra watched him carefully. She trusted him more than she had expected to trust anyone in a long time. Prepare the fleet, she commanded. Kyle will coordinate the defense. Within moments, the palace fleet moved into formation. Kale instructed Zetherian pilots in unconventional maneuvers. Instead of facing the enemy head-on, he guided them into flanking positions, using the city's tall buildings and orbital satellites as cover. Energy pulses from the rogue ships bounced harmlessly off shields, unable to hit their targets. The rogue fleet unleashed a barrage, but Kale anticipated their patterns. He had studied their tactics quickly, noticing the subtle repetition in their attacks. "Divert power to shields in a rotating sequence," he shouted. "Focus lasers on their lead ships, then hit the rest." The Zetherians followed his instructions, with precision. Slowly, the enemy formation began to falter. Ships collided, weapons misfired, and panic spread among the rogue forces. Kale moved among the command centers, calmly giving instructions, each one effective, each one saving lives. Princess Lyra could not help but feel awe. This human, so different, so alien, yet so capable, was changing the course of the battle. She had always believed in the legends of humans, but seeing it firsthand left her breathless. Amid the chaos, a massive rogue ship broke through the defenses, heading directly for the palace. Its energy beams scorched the walls, sending fragments of stone flying. Guards scrambled, but the ship's power was overwhelming. Kale didn't hesitate. "I'll stop it," he said. Without waiting for permission, he sprinted to a smaller craft docked on the palace platform. Lyra's heart pounded. This human had no formal training with their ships, but she could see his determination. The craft lifted into the air with a roar, and Kale maneuvered through debris and enemy fire. Using his instinct and agility, he dodged the beams and closed in on the rogue ship. He noticed a weak point near its engines and fired a precise energy shot. The ship shuddered and began to lose control. "Good work," Lyra shouted through the communication link. "Bring it down safely." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "No time for safety," he muttered. With one final maneuver, he rammed the ship into an empty sector, causing a controlled explosion far from the city. Debris rained harmlessly into space. The rogue fleet, seeing their leader destroyed, faltered and began to retreat. The palace erupted in cheers. Zetherians ran into the streets celebrating the victory. Guards lifted Kale onto their shoulders, chanting his name. Lyra watched silently, a mixture of relief and admiration filling her heart. When the noise finally died down, Lyra approached him. Dust covered his clothes and his hair was disheveled, but Kale's eyes shone with determination and calm. "You were incredible," she said, her voice quiet but full of emotion. "I've never seen anyone fight like that, human or Zetherian." Kale shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "I just did what I thought was right. That's all anyone can do." Lyra looked at him and felt a strange pull, one she could no longer ignore. There was more to this human than she had realized. Something in him felt like destiny. Over the next few days, Kale worked with the palace engineers and military leaders to repair damage and strengthen defenses. His human ingenuity blended with Zetherian technology in ways that amazed everyone. Energy shields were upgraded, drones were reprogrammed for faster response, and training programs were adapted to include some of Kale's methods. As they worked together, Lyra noticed subtle changes in Kale's behavior. He studied their history and culture with genuine interest, learning their language, their customs, and their ways. Yet, despite adapting, he never lost his human uniqueness, the courage, the quick thinking, and the instinct to protect others at all costs. One evening, after a long day of repairs and strategy meetings, Kale and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected on the calm waters, painting the streets in silver light. "You have changed this city," Lyra said softly, "not just by fighting, but by showing us another way to think, another way to survive." Kale looked at her. "I only did what I could, but I feel like I was meant to be here like this. All of this was waiting for me." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. The visions she had seen, the memories of a life she could not fully recall, began to make sense. There was a connection between them, stronger than any she had known. "Kyle," she said, hesitating. "There is something I need to tell you. Something about the legends of our people, about a prophecy." Kale turned to her, curiosity and seriousness in his eyes. "I've felt it too," he said. "Something draws us together, something important." Lyra nodded. She guided him to the royal archives once again, The ancient texts glowed under their soft light. She showed him the passages that spoke of a warrior from a distant world, destined to fight alongside the princess and protect Scytheria from great danger. You might be the one, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Cale read the texts carefully, his brow furrowed. It can't be. Can it? I'm human. I've never seen this planet before, and yet the words feel familiar, like they were waiting for me. Lyra reached out, placing a hand on his arm. I've had visions, strange flashes of a life I don't remember, and you were always there, fighting with me, standing by me. It's as if our destinies are linked. Kyle felt a shiver run through him. The battles, the survival, the connection he felt to Lyra. It was all coming together. Something deep inside him stirred. He did not fully understand it, but he knew one thing. He would stand by her no matter what. In the days that followed, Kale trained with the Royal Guards, not just in combat but in leadership and strategy. He shared his knowledge of human tactics, teaching the Scytherians to think differently, to adapt, and to overcome challenges with creativity and courage. Lyra observed him with admiration. Not only was he brave, but he inspired others. Scytherians, proud and disciplined as they were, began to see the value in his approach. They began to trust him, to follow his guidance, and to respect his courage. One afternoon, a small group of scouts returned from a nearby planet, bringing news of a new threat, a faction of rogue aliens regrouping after their defeat. They were stronger and more determined than before. Lyra's eyes hardened. It seems our victory was only the beginning, she said. Kale placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We will face them together, he said. We've learned much and we've proven we can adapt. Whatever comes, we can handle it. Lyra felt a surge of hope. Together they were stronger than any threat. Human ingenuity, combined with Scytherian technology and wisdom, was a force no enemy could underestimate. As night fell, the city settled into an uneasy peace. Stars glittered above, silent witnesses to the events below. Princess Lyra and Kale stood side by side, looking toward the horizon. They did not yet know the full scope of the challenges ahead, but one thing was clear. Scytheria had found a new hero, and the bond between human and princess was only beginning to grow. The war had been won, but the battle for the future of Scytheria and for their destinies was just beginning. The palace was quiet, but the air felt heavy. The battle had ended, yet the tension lingered. Princess Lyra walked through the corridors, her mind full of questions she could not yet answer. Kyle had become more than a warrior. He had become a symbol of hope for Scytheria. Yet there was something more, something she sensed but could not explain. Kyle had been restless since the battle. Though he had proven his strength and ingenuity, his dreams had begun to trouble him. Each night, flashes of memory haunted him. A life that seemed familiar yet distant. A bond with someone he could not fully see. A feeling of love and loss intertwined. One evening, Kyle approached Lyra in the royal garden. The twin moons reflected in the water, casting a silver glow over the flowers and fountains. Lyra, he said softly, I've been having dreams. Memories, I think. I don't understand them, but they feel real. I see you, fighting beside me, calling me. Something I can't remember. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She had seen similar visions herself, but had kept them secret, afraid they would seem like madness. Kyle, I see them too, she admitted. Images of a life we shared, a connection beyond this world. Kale took a deep breath. I feel like I am supposed to remember something. Something important. Something about us. Lyra nodded. I think you are. The prophecy. It speaks of a warrior from another world, destined to fight beside the princess. But there is more, I feel it. Something personal. Something about our bond. Kyle's eyes widened. Our bond. You feel it too? Yes. Lyra said. Stronger than anything I have ever known. Stronger than fear, stronger than duty. It is like fate itself has guided you here. That night, Kyle could not sleep. The memories continued, growing sharper with each dream. He saw himself in a palace that mirrored Zytheria, but different, brighter, warmer. He saw Lyra, her eyes filled with love and determination, calling his name. He remembered laughter, battles, and a promise they had made to protect each other and the world. When he awoke, Kale felt a strange clarity. The visions were not just dreams, they were memories of a past life. He remembered being Zytherian, living in this world before being torn away by a cosmic event. The memory was overwhelming and tears filled his eyes as he realized the truth. Lyra found him in the training hall, staring at the floor with a distant expression. Kale? She asked gently. Kale looked up, his eyes shining with revelation. Lyra, I remember everything. I was your husband. We were separated by something beyond our control. I don't know how I survived or why I ended up on another world, but I remember you. I remember us. Lyra's eyes widened in shock. Her heart raced as she tried to comprehend the words. You were my husband? But how? That is impossible. Kale shook his head. It seemed impossible to me too until I remembered. The visions, the connection, the prophecy, they were guiding me back to you. We were always meant to reunite, no matter the distance, no matter the years. Lyra felt a mixture of disbelief and wonder. She had always been proud, independent, and focused on her duty. Yet now, faced with this revelation, she felt something else. A deep, undeniable love. A bond that transcended time and space. They sat together in silence, letting the truth sink in. The stars outside the windows shone brightly, as if celebrating their reunion. You are my true husband? Lyra whispered, almost afraid to say it aloud. Kale nodded. Yes. And you are my true wife. We were separated, but fate has brought us back together. And now we must face what comes next. Together. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of joy and responsibility. If this is true, then everything changes. Our connection, our bond, it is not just personal. It is tied to the prophecy, to the safety of Zytheria. We are meant to lead, to protect, to unite this world and perhaps others. Kyle reached for her hand. Then we face it together. Whatever comes, I will be by your side. Over the next few days, Kyle and Lyra worked tirelessly to prepare Zytheria for the threats that still lingered. The rogue faction had not been defeated entirely. They were regrouping, planning their next attack. Kyle shared his knowledge of strategy and human ingenuity, while Lyra coordinated the palace defenses and rallied the people. Together, they created a new approach to defense, blending human adaptability with Zytherian technology. Shields were reinforced, weapons were upgraded, and communication networks were improved to allow faster response times. The citizens of Zytheria watched in awe as their leaders, a human and a princess, worked side by side, demonstrating courage, wisdom, and unity. Despite the urgency, Kale and Lyra found moments to reconnect personally. They shared stories of their past lives, laughed at memories that were both familiar and strange, and comforted each other in quiet moments of vulnerability. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, a union of hearts as well as minds. One evening, as they trained together in the palace courtyard, Lyra paused and looked at Kale. Do you remember the promise we made? She asked. Kale nodded, a smile on his face. Always. To protect each other, to protect our people, no matter the cost. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. Then we will honor that promise. Not just as rulers, but as partners. As a united force for this world and all who dwell within it. Kale took her hand and squeezed it gently. Together we are unstoppable. The following days were filled with preparation and vigilance. The rogue faction was returning, stronger and more cunning than before. Scouts reported advanced weaponry and new tactics, but Kale and Lyra were ready. They had not only strengthened the city's defenses but also trained the citizens and soldiers to think creatively, adapt quickly, and fight courageously. The night before the anticipated battle, Lyra and Kale stood together on a balcony overlooking Cytheria. The city lights glimmered below, and the stars above seemed to watch silently. "We've come a long way," Lyra said softly, "from strangers to allies, and now more than that." Kyle nodded. "Yes, and tomorrow we face the greatest challenge of our lives. But I am not afraid, because we face it together." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. "Together," she whispered. As dawn approached, the first signs of the rogue fleet appeared on the horizon. Ships glinted in the sunlight, moving with precision and menace. But this time, Cytheria was ready. The citizens, soldiers, and leaders stood united, their courage bolstered by the bond between Lyra and Kale. The revelation of Kale's past life had not only strengthened their personal bond, but also strengthened the resolve of an entire planet. The prophecy was unfolding, and the human warrior and the alien princess were at the center of it all. No one could predict the outcome, but one thing was certain: Cytheria had found its champions. Kyle and Lyra were not only bound by fate and love, but also by a shared duty to protect their world. Together, they were ready to face any threat, overcome any obstacle, and fulfill the destiny that had been waiting for them across the stars. The night faded, and the first light of battle approached. Kale and Lyra stood side by side, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Their hearts were united, their minds focused, and their spirits unbreakable. The prophecy had revealed the truth, and the revelation had changed everything. Tomorrow, Cytheria would face its greatest test, and Kale and Lyra, reunited by destiny and bound by love, would lead the charge. For the first time in centuries, hope burned brighter than fear, and the human warrior and the alien princess, destined partners in life and battle, were ready to embrace it fully. The first light of dawn shimmered over Cytheria. The city, gleaming with advanced technology and ancient beauty, stood ready. The rogue faction, regrouped and more dangerous than ever, approached in their warships. Smoke and energy trails streaked across the sky as the fleet descended toward the planet. Princess Lyra stood at the command balcony, her eyes scanning the horizon. Beside her, Kyle tightened his grip on the controls of a scout craft. The bond between them had grown stronger than ever. They were no longer just allies. They were partners in destiny, bound by love and purpose. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, softly. Kale nodded. "Always. We've trained, we've prepared, and now we fight. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who calls this planet home." The city's defenders lined the walls, their energy weapons charged, their shields glowing. Citizens watched from safe distances, inspired by the courage of their leaders. For the first time, they felt united, ready to face the threat together. The rogue fleet unleashed a barrage, but Kale had anticipated their attack. He directed the palace defense systems with precision, combining human ingenuity with Cytherian technology. Shields rotated, energy beams deflected attacks, and drones moved with swift, coordinated patterns. Lyra led the ground forces, her voice calm yet commanding. Soldiers followed her every instruction, moving with confidence. She coordinated with Kale through secure communication links, their strategies perfectly synchronized. The synergy between human and Cytherian minds created a force the enemy could not predict. "Focus on their leadership," Kale shouted. "If we take it down, the rest will scatter." Lyra nodded. "Squads Alpha and Delta flank from the north and south. Draw them in." The battle erupted across the skies and streets. Energy beams lit the air. Ships collided and explosions rocked the city. Yet through the chaos, Kale and Lyra moved with clarity and purpose. Kale piloted his craft with incredible skill, weaving through enemy fire while Lyra coordinated the defenders below, striking where the enemy was weakest. Amid the chaos, Kale noticed a massive rogue ship breaking through the main defenses, heading straight for the palace. His heart raced. This ship threatened everything they had fought for. Without hesitation, he leapt into action, maneuvering through enemy fire with unmatched precision. Lyra watched, her breath caught in her throat, as Kale approached the rogue ship. "Be careful," she whispered. Kale's eyes narrowed. "I've got this," he replied. Using his human ingenuity, he identified a structural weakness in the enemy vessel. With careful timing, he fired a precise energy shot, destabilizing the ship. It wobbled, sparks flying, before he executed a daring move, colliding it into an empty sector of space away from the city. The rogue ship exploded, scattering debris harmlessly. The enemy fleet faltered, their formation breaking as their leader fell. The Zitharian forces pressed forward, striking with renewed confidence. The rogue ships retreated, unable to maintain their assault. Cheers erupted across the city. Lyra descended to the battlefield, where the citizens and soldiers were celebrating. She found Kale among the defenders, his clothes scorched but his eyes shining with determination. She ran to him, embracing him tightly. "You were incredible," she said. "You saved us all." Kale smiled, brushing a hand through his hair. "We did it together," he replied. "The people, the soldiers, and you." For a moment, the world felt still. Zitharia had survived. The rogue faction had been defeated, and the prophecy had been fulfilled, not through the strength of one, but through unity, courage, and the bond between human and Princess. In the days that followed, Zitharia began to rebuild. Kyle and Lyra worked tirelessly, ensuring the city was stronger, safer, and prepared for the future. They introduced new training programs, combining human tactics with Zitharian technology, creating a force that could defend the planet against any threat. The citizens admired Kale, not only for his bravery, but for his ingenuity, his compassion, and his ability to inspire hope. He became a symbol of humanity's resilience and creativity, a living example that even a human from a distant world could change the course of history. Lyra, meanwhile, embraced her role as queen, guided not just by duty but by love and partnership. Together with Kale, she led the people of Zitharia toward a new era, an era of unity, strength, and hope. One evening, as the twin moons reflected on the calm waters of the city, Lyra and Kale stood together, overlooking the streets they had fought to protect. "Do you ever think about how we met?" Lyra asked softly. Kale smiled. "I think about it every day. From the moment I crashed here, I felt drawn to this world, to you. Now I understand why. Fate brought me back to my true home." Lyra laughed lightly, shaking her head. "And all this time I thought humans were just legends. But you've proven that even legends can be real." Kyle took her hand. "Not just real, extraordinary. And together we can be stronger than anyone imagined." Lyra's heart swelled with emotion. Yes, together. The palace prepared for a grand ceremony to celebrate the victory and the unification of human ingenuity. With Zitharian wisdom, delegates from neighboring planets were invited, marking the beginning of a new alliance that would extend beyond Zitharia. During the ceremony, Lyra and Kyle stood before the people, hand in hand. Lyra spoke with grace and authority. "Today, we celebrate not only our victory but our unity. Humans and Zitharians working together can achieve greatness beyond imagination. This bond, forged in courage and trust, is the future of our world." Kale followed, his voice strong and steady. "I may be from another world, but Zitharia is my home. And with Lyra by my side, I will fight to protect it, its people, and its values. Together, we can face anything." The citizens cheered, their voices echoing across the city. They had witnessed not just a battle but the birth of a new era, an era in which courage, ingenuity, and unity would guide their future. After the ceremony, Lyra and Kale walked through the city, hand in hand. Citizens approached them to express gratitude, share stories, or simply admire the leaders who had saved their world. Children ran past, laughing, inspired by the tales of the human warrior and the princess who fought together. Lyra paused at a fountain, watching the water ripple under the moonlight. "It feels like everything we've dreamed of is beginning," she said. Kale smiled, looking at the stars above. And it's only the beginning. There are other worlds, other challenges, and other adventures waiting for us. But no matter what comes, we face it together. Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. Together, she repeated, feeling the weight of destiny and love at the same time. As the night grew calm, the city slept peacefully. Cytheria had been tested, its people had risen to the challenge, and a new future awaited. Kyle and Lyra, united in love and purpose, were ready to guide their world into that future. For the first time in centuries, hope burned brighter than fear. Courage, ingenuity, and unity had triumphed, and the human warrior and the alien princess, bound by destiny and choice, stood at the heart of a galaxy that was beginning to believe in the strength of humanity. The stars twinkled above, silent, witnesses to the story of two souls brought together across time and space, a human and an alien, a warrior and a princess united as one. And so the legend began, not of war and fear, but of hope, courage, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Cytheria would never forget the day the human warrior came and changed everything, and neither would Kale and Lyra. Together they were unstoppable, and together they would face whatever the galaxy had in store next. The world was theirs to protect, and the future, bright, bold, and full of possibility, was theirs to shape.